Welcome to the One More Thing podcast. Today I am joined with Dr. Troy Doucet.
Hello.
If you do say so yourself.
That's me. If I do say so, yeah.
So on One More Thing, we recap this past weekend's message. And this week we're still in Epic. This was week 7?
Seven.
So we're journeying through Elijah's story. And so this week it was frustration. How do you think this weekend went? How'd you feel?
I thought it was a great weekend. It was fun, man. The whole idea of the sermon was to create the sense of like paradox in our being.
Yeah.
And because we humans are capable of so much good and so much, charity, but also lots of horrific tragedy, that in itself lends itself to a type of frustration, right?
Sure.
We can become frustrated when we have, and pastors are probably most prone to becoming, objects of frustration of people because we expect, whatever the old school religious term was, above reproach. But when in fact I made that point at the beginning, we are people. And so was Elijah. He was a great, an epic personality, a powerful prophet, but just a person, man. And we forget that, and that can, those unmet expectations lead to frustration. So.
Yeah, and I think it was something that, and you had mentioned this before, like, it's something that everybody can relate to, right? Mm-hmm. It's, everybody's been frustrated at one point in their life or another, but I just love like the philosophy side that you brought to the table.
Yeah.
You could see your philosophy background coming out this weekend more than I've ever seen, with all the paradoxes of the points, and so you definitely leaned more into that.
Yeah.
Obviously flexing your theology muscle as well with your knowledge of just ancient languages and that kind of stuff and the understanding, but how you brought that home. And that's been my favorite part about this entire series. This is an ancient story. Even before it was written down, this was, told through spoken word, just generation after generation. So when you guys take these ancient stories and make them relatable to us, and the point that stuck out to me, and I've been here so many times in my life, is like you have something that happens in your life and it's almost like you erase all the accomplishments of your past. And it's such a great reminder to like, okay, in those moments of frustration when things don't go your way, and I'm a control freak. And you can ask my wife, I have to like be very much in control. And when things don't go the way I've planned, it's like everything falls apart.
That's right.
It sucks. So stopping in that moment, and Laura being married to a therapist is amazing because she'll remind me, like, just remember, like, you may have failed at this thing, but you've done all this other stuff that you can be proud of. So that was a really good message. Not everyone's blessed to be married to a therapist that can remind you of those things. So.
That would scare the hell out of me to be married to a therapist.
It's a double-edged sword, for sure.
Yeah, a paradox in and of itself.
Exactly.
Right? But no, man, I think that's an important point. We all need to be reminded at times of those points in our life where we succeeded. Because if we're not, we forget. Because that's the paradox of memory, right? We have great memories that we can call forth to our mind. But there are times we forget, right? And that's just part of the paradox of being.
Right.
And so, but yeah, man, I think that's an important aspect that the sermon tried to lay out is we all have a past. We all have mistakes. But we all have this potential, man, that rest like dormant, like giants inside of us that, if we can get to that point where I thought, was pertinent, was to a point of weakness.
Right.
And that's where God has us, right where he wants us. And that's when that divine potential can be unleashed. It's when we're beyond ourself and allow God to just like supercharge us. But, and that's why I love the One More Thing podcast, man, because there were things that I didn't just have room for in the sermon. Because like, look, man, I have a PhD, right? And I'm very proud of that accomplishment. And what I didn't want to do is belittle sort of the achievements that people in the crowd I know have done. Like, you've done this and you've accomplished this and you've finished this or whatever. None of that matters. No, it's not true. It does. But the point I was going to try to make, and, it's why we have space here, is like, My degree is of value in certain situations,
Okay.
right? When I'm having a conversation about the existence of God or whatever, I can lean on that philosophy. But my PhD has no value, really, when a person just needs a hug, Like it offers no value at that point. I just need to reach out and hug this person or give this person an affirming word. So what I tried not to do was belittle our achievements and accomplishments that we have and that we should be proud of.
Right.
But at the end, I think what God desires from us is just like this availability to be used. And if he uses those accomplishments I've already kind of have set in my life, great. But it's not necessary, right? And that's the point I was trying to drive home is you don't need any of these things in order for God to use you. You just need
that
to
was actually one of the points that I wrote down was, God cares more about your availability than your actual ability.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a really good line.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it a million times, but I thought it was really, it fit really well with what Elijah was going through at that moment. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, man.
So this is more of a personal question for me, just as a person listening to the sermon. I'll address my need to control things. And so one of the efforts to kind of get better about that is I've done a lot of work within like Stoicism. Mm-hmm. Do you know anything about Stoicism at all?
Yeah, for sure.
So how does Stoicism fit into a message like this?
Yeah, so Stoicism, you talk about the guys like, Marcus Aurelius or Cicero, some of these.
Yeah, the more famous Stoics in the group, yeah.
Yeah, Stoicism is really, to sort of reduce it to a, sort of a simplistic definition, is it's sort of that letting things be, that, control the things you can.
It's the serenity prayer, ultimately.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, the serenity, and letting things go that you can't.
Right.
And there's a great word, man, I have a whole chapter on it in my dissertation. It's this German word. It's the Gelassenheit, which literally translates the letting, like to just let.
Right.
Like you just let things happen. And for Elijah, we saw in his story, at that moment, he had that expectation that went unmet. Mm-hmm. He essentially took the situation by the horns and said, it's not going as I think it should be. What the heck's wrong?
Right.
Not with him or with God. Like, why are these people not turning? What are you not doing? And he runs away.
Right.
Again, not in fear of Jezebel or death. He asked to die.
Right.
But I think it's in his own frustration of his unmet expectation. Whereas a Stoic would say, oops.
Yeah.
You guys aren't getting it? Well, I've done what I could.
Right.
And so I try my best to practice my own sort of personal stoicism, man. But I mean, it's everybody's personality is different.
Sure.
You being a control freak, practicing stoicism has got to be very difficult.
It's the most difficult. And I mean, 2020 last year was the true test for me.
My gosh,
because I felt like at the beginning I was trying my best to control the situation.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, like at least the people that were around me that were starting to freak out. I'm just like, okay, it's nothing to freak out about, this and that. And just trying to give them the stats and give them all the knowledge that I had at the moment. And then just everything fell apart and there was nothing I could do about it.
So here's a question, like, how do you feel when you're able to accomplish this type of stoic moment?
Mm-hmm. I feel amazing. Yeah. It's definitely like a conflicting thing, right? Because it's almost like fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. Oh, I don't care. Yeah. But I really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's nothing I can control. It'll all work out. But there's some part of me in the back of my mind that's like, you need to do something about this.
Yeah, right, right.
So it's constantly like this internal struggle. And I don't think Stoicism is the answer to everything because I think there are certain, you can't go too far with it, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could just let everything go and do nothing.
Yeah.
And I think you need to take up responsibility as well.
Yeah. So it goes to that third point I made, the paradoxical point of the past is always before you, right? That's a deeply Nietzschean perspective, is that ethics or morality, it's not based or constituted in particular laws of, ethics or moral, legislation, but really it's like there will be, the past will come back around. Right?
Sure.
It's circular. Like you will be put in a situation that's maybe not exactly the same, but very similar. And what are you going to do? Are you going to try to control it?
Right.
Or are you going to say, I tried to control this stuff last time.
Yeah.
And it didn't work out. So I've learned from that. So the past being before me allows me to sort of recapitulate, recalibrate, rethink how I'd do things differently.
Well, and I think that's why wisdom is so important, right? Wisdom, in tribal times, the elder was the person that you'd go to because they've seen so many things. They've been through so many situations. And I think that line that you said this week about, it's a shame that youth is wasted on the, or how did it go? The youth is wasted on the young.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Because it is true. When you're young, you don't really, you think you have life all figured out. And then life has a way of humbling you, especially in your 20s and 30s. Like, nope, you don't got it figured out.
That's right.
So there is something so valuable about wisdom, and wisdom is going through something. And then when you meet it again, you're like, okay, I've been here. I know it didn't work the last time and I know it worked this time. And then you go through it and it's just a little bit easier the next time. But okay. I like the Stoicism aspect of this.
Yeah. It fits. It fits. Absolutely.
Yeah. What were some other points that you had that you maybe didn't get out because of the time restraints?
Yeah, I think I nailed most of what I think was most, essential to the text. But what I found, because this was really like there was some bits of humor that I threw in.
Yeah. I love the island story. The guy that's abandoned on this island.
You hope people get your humor. But this sermon in particular, I think because it resonated almost universally, like we've all had unmet expectations that sort of garnered frustration in our life. There were so many conversations that took place in the Grand Hall afterwards, more than any other sermon I had given, because a lot of those other ones were heavy content, and at points of pain in our life. But this one was like, dude, I've went through that. So I think what it did was it resonated so heavily because of its universality with people.
Right.
I mean, it was just a great series, man. And again, we have, 2 more to go, but it was a great sermon for what Elijah did. And I think the last piece that I didn't get to answer your question was that last part where he went into that cave.
Right.
On that mountain. Like there was a heightened sense of intentionality for him to return to a historical monument in his life that, like you said, had been passed down verbally to even Elijah. Like, I gotta make it to this place because I know that's where God was. And I think that's an important thing for us to remember, is that sometimes we have to go to the past to regain some perspective, right? Like you and I talk about this all the time with our sort of like charismatic type, influences.
Right, our upbringing.
We go back to that and we have fun talking about some of the more mystical things that we may not consider to be like completely truthful or pertinent to our walk today. But I think those times are important, man. You go back and you look back at that. And again, it's, that's what Elijah did. That's what we should do. And to put it in sort of for us, even if the past is painful, it can be useful. And that's the idea, man.
I love it. Well, so then you're on this weekend again.
Yeah, this is going to be an awesome one, man. This is, buckle up. This one's going to be do
you want to give us like what it's going to be about?
Yeah, so
we're
staying with Pastor Larry sort of the P's, right? To be sort of, we call that homiletics, in theology, where everything. So we've had like the predicament, the problem, pain, paradox this week, and this week it's so that's what we're calling it, the PSST.
Okay,
and it's about Elijah. Where do we truly encounter God?
Right.
Like where is God to be found? And we're gonna have some fun at where people have thought that God could be found, but where the essential nature of God's being exists. So it's gonna be good, man.
I'm so excited for it. Well, thank you so much for being on One More Thing.
Yeah, man.
It's always an honor and a pleasure.
It's always great to be here with you, man.
Thanks.
Awesome.